Okay, so this is the second half of the lecture on group influence phenomena, and I'm going to start with social loafing. I don't know about you, but I hate doing group projects. Let me get my clicker here and I have it on here. I can't stand it. And one of the reasons is because I want to make a good grade, and maybe not everybody in my group is equally motivated as I am to get this grade of an A. So Ingham started doing these studies back in the 70s, and he's done a lot of different studies, but basically you do tug of war. It seems like if you had a tug of war with more than one person, that you would pull harder. But what he would do is have this contraption where you were right here on the front, and then he would blindfold you, and you could feel the people behind you, and they would either you thought they were pulling or you didn't think they were pulling. And so you were asked to pull as hard as you could. Now, it doesn't seem like it would make a difference if you thought people were behind you or not, but what he started to find is if you thought you were pulling alone, you pulled harder and it cut off down here than if you thought you were pulling in a group. Thought you were. I feels like I would pull harder in a group, but the idea is that you loaf a little bit, you let up just a little bit because many hands make light. And so they pulled 18% harder when they thought they were the only one pulling. Subsequent studies with clapping and try to make as much noise as you can in a group or alone. They have noise canceling headphones on. And so when you think this doesn't make sense to me either. When you think you're alone, you make more noise than when you think you're in a group. Sometimes when I'm in a group, I guess when you're singing at church, you can pretend like you're not singing. But this is what they started to find. In group settings, especially when you have these additive tasks where everybody's doing the same thing, then people will start to love because they go, well, the other dudes can pick up the slack. And so thought they were clapping alone, thought they were clapping with others, and so 33% less noise when they believed other people were clapping. That's the part that kind of blows. Okay, so this is really describing the phenomenon of free riding. Free riders are those people in the groups that are bums, and then because there's no accountability, I want you to remember these two words for the test. Accountability is when your efforts are easily identifiable. So I can say Tim did this and Susan did that or Jeff did this, and so I can identify everybody's efforts. Well, in a group project, this is a group grade, so you can't tell who did what. And so in these situations, you can get people to goof off. So that's accountability, being able to identify each person's effort. Now, another thing that promotes free riding, besides this lack of accountability, is dispensability. People start thinking, well, I bet you the group can do without my efforts. So they can succeed without my efforts. And so if I start to think that my efforts aren't crucial to the group's success, then I'll just go, oh, well, I'll let them do it. And so both of these two factors lead to these people free riding, that they can fly underneath the radar because nobody's going to know if they did anything or not, and they get the feeling that y'all can pick up the slack if I don't do it. Okay, I hope that made sense. Okay, so one way to get rid of this, and in class I show some movies about this, but I'm not going to do that today, is called jigsaw task, because in additive tasks, if we're all clapping, all pulling, we're all doing the same thing, all digging a hole. But in jigsaw tests, you don't all do the same thing. Let's say you're given a group project and one person has to do the research, and one person is going to write the paper, and one person is going to do the PowerPoint, and one person is going to give the presentation. Well, if anybody drops the ball, the whole group fails. So since all the tasks are unique, that the research is different than the presentation, if the presenter doesn't show up, you still get a bad grade. So everybody has their own job. It makes you feel special and unique, and this kind of goes along with niches that I talk about in my intro class. Okay, number 5 is de-individuation. I really like talking about de-individuation if I can get my clicker here. And really, it's just like it sounds. When you get in a big group, you become a big mob and you lose your sense of self. Now, I think I have the definition right here. A loss of self-awareness. You lose your sense of self. And what happens, it leads into that word accountability again. You forget who you are and you do things and you don't hold yourself responsible. And this is sometimes what I call mob psychology, because mobs, they tear stuff up, they do bad things. And then the individual members of the mob go, well, the group was doing it, but you're a part of the group. So you kind of get lost in this group behavior, if that makes sense. So this antisocial behavior that I'm going to talk about, um, it has a lot to do with anonymity. And this anonymity goes back to the group project things in the previous section, that when you're anonymous in a group, you can kind of get away with things. And so if you're accountable in a group, is the opposite of anonymity. And so Laban in 1895 started to study this thing called group mind. That when we get these, I have these lemmings on here, let's all run and jump off of a cliff, we get this group mind going on. Okay, and so people have a group mind. Sometimes this is hive mind. If you're doing it for your projects, that's hive mind. Everybody thinks the same. There's no disparity in the way people think. So you can see how all these kind of interrelate to one another. Okay, I love this picture, how you lose your individuality within big groups, but people do that too. Okay, so here I am back again. I usually give this a little analogy how in groups, normally you have your individual personality. This is your color that I have here. But like in group settings, sometimes this color is kind of taken away. Our individuality goes away and we just become a collection of robotic people that are all interchangeable parts, for lack of a better term. And so I usually give this example from The Who. In 1979 in Cincinnati, Ohio, all these people were very excited to come see The Who. I know I'm a little bit older than y'all, but anyway, they all rushed into the door because they only opened a few doors or one door, and everybody, as they funneled in through these doors, they stomped and trampled on people, and 11 people were killed in this incident. Now, I'm sure you didn't show up to the Who concert saying, I want to go kill somebody tonight, but at the end, who do you blame? It's the group, but a group is a collection of individuals, and they didn't have anybody that they could really hold accountable for the deaths of these individuals. So I haven't talked a lot about Freud in this class, but Freud talks about this animalistic part of ourself. I call it the tiger, the idnal primordial self. But we usually have ways to keep this in check. We're taught ways like ego, social checks, or superego, moral checks. But in groups and other situations I talk about, sometimes these leashes get taken off the tiger, and what happens is you get a bunch of tigers together, a mob, and they go back down to that primordial nature, like Lord of the Flies. Okay, so Zimbardo in 1970 did this famous study called the Hood Study. In the Hood Study, there was all these women that were brought in, and some wore hoods and loose-fitting robes. That's de-individuating their character. You can't tell who is who, interchangeable parts. And other women were name tags. That individuates you, accents your individuality. So we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum here. Now, later on, they get a chance to shock a mean or a nice lady. And so these ladies were actors that were helping out with the study, but they had been either bitchy or nice and sweet. And so what they started to find is, of course, the hooded subjects were more likely to shock one of these two ladies, but the hooded subjects also did something interesting. They held down on the button twice as long, more intense shocks. And also, the big finding, the big takeaway from this study is that they shocked the nice and obnoxious Confederate or mean lady the same amount. So this says that we'll hurt nice people. I don't care if you hurt mean people, but you're going to hurt nice people whenever you're in groups or whenever you get de-individuated. Think about this. The KKK. They get in big groups, they de-individuate, and then they go out and hurt nice people. And so this is done, intentionally, to cloak themselves within these big crowds. They don't go out as individuals in broad daylight and say, hi, my name is Tim, I'm with the KKK, I'm here to hurt you. They go out, in a more cowardly fashion in these big groups where they can mask their identity when they do these bad things. Okay, Leon Mann did this weird research where he noticed that people in big cities would bait people into suicide when people were going to jump off and like kill themselves. That big crowds in a sick way would get down at the bottom and go jump, 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 jump. And so he found it was more likely to happen in bigger crowds and bigger cities where people were more anonymous. And so who cares? People are more kind of aloof from each other. Now, Diener in 1976 did this famous study I call the trick or treat study. Think about Halloween, you rove around in groups, you conceal your identity. And so what they did, they would just sit at home and they would wait for people to come by. And sometimes kids would come by alone, but mostly in a group. And then for half of the kids, they would do this, ask them their name, and half they wouldn't. So you can see in this situation, group and you're anonymous is what I've been talking about all along. If you're alone and identified, it's like the ladies with name tags. And so what they do is they tell the kids, I think I hear my phone ringing, and set the bowl of candy at the front door and say, just take one apiece. And they see whether or not the kids obey the law that they just said. And you can see over here the orange lines, especially the tallest orange bar over here, is anonymous and in a group. That over 50% of those kids take more than one piece, whereas the black one over here on the left, alone, identified, it just asks you your name, you were alone. In this case, 90% of the time, or over 90% of the time, kids follow the rule. So you can see that people are breaking the rule more in these cases where they can be anonymous. Okay, we're almost done with this section. I have a few more examples that I wanted to talk about. Let me get my clicker here. Texting. Think about texting. It's so easy to be mean to people over text. I should be one to talk. I've sent a lot of ugly texts that I regret because if you were face to face with that person, you wouldn't do that. I mean, people break up, I can't believe, with people over text and all kinds of other things. So that's one of the areas where we can be anonymous, whereas with face-to-face interactions, this is why I think people don't like face-to-face interactions or talking on the phone because it's more demand. Okay, think about cyberbullying. It's basically the same thing. It's easy to cyberbully. If you had to bully somebody on the playground, you'd have to be big and tough, but like behind closed doors, you can talk all kinds of smack. The other thing is road rage. It's the exact same thing. You get the point here. Now, one of the areas I really focus in on is the military, and you might be doing this for your project, so this is very pertinent to your project because I think boot camp is de-individuation camp. You have to do it. Can't have a collection of individuals. You have to de-individuate everybody. This is why I like the military actually, because they de-individuate everybody to be the same. The group is bigger than the individual. I like this philosophy. It's not necessarily negative, but sometimes as a group in the military, we're going to have to go out and do bad things. I shouldn't say we be in it. Okay, so all militaries de-individuate, and so you think about in war, if we're de-individuated and you're de-individuated over here is by I kill you, then basically I'm just killing an interchangeable part. In Vietnam, they would call everybody Charlie. It's like, think about Forrest Gump. We were always looking for this guy named Charlie, right? Well, Charlie is not the name of every person of your enemy, but if you give them all the same name, Charlie, Habib, whatever else are the slurs out there, then you're not really killing a person. So one of the problems in the newer war, think about American Sniper if you saw this movie, that the enemy started to not de-individuate. So they look like civilians, and it's like, well, I don't want to kill a little kid or a woman. That's what happens in the first scene of American Sniper, but it's like you might have to because the enemy has chose to not de-individuate, and we still run in there looking like soldiers. They know who we are interchangeably, but we don't know who they are. It kind of seems like de-individuation is a bad thing. I mean, I kind of pointed out a little bit of good in it, but I, used to give 1984 as a project, and one of the terms from 1984, or one of the crimes in 1984, is called own life. If you buy different kind of shoes or razors for yourself, or do anything for yourself as a luxury, that's a crime because it's own life. Well, we're kind of the opposite in the United States of America. It's kind of, we love to have our own life. It's not a crime, it's celebrated. In some ways, it becomes so selfish because it's almost like musical chairs. Now, sometimes I think the best teams involve the individuals that lay down their own personal egos. I don't want to get into Mr. Big Chest right now and like sacrifice their egos for the team. Even though I don't like the Patriots, Bill Belichick is really good about this, getting everybody to lay down their personal egos to sacrifice for the team effort. And so this is the psychology of coaching, but the best teams to me are the ones that we worry about the W or the L. We don't worry about my points, my assists, my, completions, my catches, whatever else it is. Now, this leads into this problem in America that I think that we have is individuation problem. Everybody's got to be celebrity. I'm special. Yeah, you're special, but so am I. So you're not more specialer than anybody else. So let's get over that stuff and start to think about other people. And so now I don't think we need celebrities because pretty soon everybody just, including me, has followers, you know what I mean? And then you're your own celebrity, which I'm not, but you get the idea. You don't have to like this, but I love the parable of the rich fool from the Bible. And basically, it's about this dude. He's so greedy and wealthy and rich, and he can't fit all of his stuff into his barn. So he decides to build a bigger barn because everything won't fit in there. And so he'll always have this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but he should just be sharing it with other people. And what God says to him, you fool, this very night of your life, that's why I include the scripture, you will die. So what are you going to do with all this stuff that you stored up that you're not going to use? This reminds me of where we live, Scottsdale, Arizona. All these people have these humongous overkill houses and everything else. And it's like, yeah, but when you die, it's like, how did you do Matthew 25? I don't want to go off with Father Andre right now, but me and Father Andre completely agree upon this. And so this is why I have Mother Teresa on here and have this little beehive on here, because I don't know if you know this. She says this is the meaning of true love, to give until it hurts. That when a bee stings itself, it gives its life for the hive. That's why I like the military too. 63 soldiers, we talked about this maybe before, jumped on grenades in the Vietnam War to protect their buddies. And so you give your life to something bigger than yourself. So usually I can't go to mass right now, but I sit in front of St. Francis and think about Tim, stop being so selfish. Think about the suffering of others. Even right now, other people can't like have jobs, and I get to have a job, and I'm like worried about me hurting at home giving these lectures. But really, what it is my opportunity to do something. Okay, the last one is group polarization. Polarize means extremities, positive or negative. You're not wishy-washy in the middle. You get pushed to the extreme. And so James Stoner, I love his name because I'm a stoner. But anyway, he studied the risky shift phenomenon. And basically, this was his dissertation, I think it was, in the 60s, where he would notice that groups, alone you wouldn't be so risky, but in group you get really, really risky. I should put this on here, but you know the Hangover movies? It's like, yeah, alone when you go to Vegas you don't get so crazy, but when you go with 3 or 4 buddies, bad things happen, right? And so you get more extreme in a group. And you can see you could get more extreme in this way, but you could also, like right now in the coronavirus, everybody's extremely cautious and prudent, so we get more extreme in these ways. Don't touch me, don't get near me, it's like whatever, wash my hands 4,500 times a day, so we can get extreme either way. Now, if I get a bunch of risky people together and we go to Vegas, it's like, watch out, Hangover 3. You know what I mean? Hangover 2, whichever one you want to pick. I like the second one the best. But if we get a bunch of conservancy as a group, they're pushing this way. I don't know if you understand my graphic. If I get a bunch of like really prudent, cautious, non-risk takers together, milquetoast people, they're gonna like, go, oh, we should all, because you're co-convincing each other. That's the nature of the extremity. And so here I have actual research where if you get some reds together and you get a bunch of reds that are racist together, they get more red. And if you get some blues together and they're kind of not, they're lovey-dovey hippies like me, then they get more blue after a while. So I saw this special, and we'll get to this in a minute, that has to do with America, but social comparison theory comes right into here. We've talked about social comparison theory this class, but you seek out like-minded bees. Think about the election. And as I seek out like, what's going to happen? Informational influence. What does that mean? We all agree it must be true. Well, that's because you only hang out with the same kind of bees, and me included. If I hang out with different bees, they will disagree with me and will challenge me to maybe have a different opinion. Hang out with some reds, Tim, or hang out with some blues, whoever you are. You know what I mean? I think that we should hang out with different kinds of people. And so if I'm Christian folk and it's like or Jewish folk, let's say, I think that's the way I did it. Yeah, I only hang out with Hebrews, then I'm going to have a different view of the world. And this goes right to your project, you know what I mean? Or Hindu or Muslim or Christian. And so they extremify my beliefs. Why? Because we already are talking about all the same stuff. Okay, so one nation under God, indivisible. I was just going off this in my religion class the other day because we're not one nation under God, indivisible. We're very divisible, very extreme. So we have these two beehives in America, and then you just go fly into your hive and get extreme. That doesn't make any sense. I don't want to know all blue bees. That's so boring. I don't want to know all red ones either. But I better know a mixture of them because then that way I got a more evolved States of America, or what I call the divided states of America. And so you can see it right here. This is from one of the elections, how we polarize, and we're in a red state here in Arizona, and we should be purple. Divided we fail, right? We get more extreme though if we hang out with the blues. That's why I don't want to go hang out with a bunch of Bernie freaks, because they'll be all extreme. If you get a bunch of extremes over here, I'm not going to hang out with a bunch of Trumpers either, because they get real extreme. I want to be in the middle, and people say, oh well, whatever, but that's divided we fail. We're not supposed to be two flavors of ice cream. We're supposed to be a spectrum. Why can't I be green? I just don't even understand that. Okay, so enough about me barking, but think about if you want to divide people in this country, all you have to do is pick one of these things and we'll polarize. Oh, well, screw you. I'm not for gay marriage, or I love my guns, or whatever. I don't care if you like what I like. That's what the First Amendment is about, but it's a whole nother us and them. One of the best Pink Floyd songs of all time. So, but anyway, we start getting that us and them mentality, which is to be. And I think that this is where I bring this analogy in. When God invented birds, they have two wings. They don't just have one wing that dominates, like the right, or the left. That's why I don't watch Fox or CNN. Watch Robin Meade right down the middle. But I don't want to get too extreme on either side because I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid from either side. I don't know why we've become this way, but the left wing, this loosey-goosey side that I'm on, is necessary. But if you get too loosey-goosey, everybody can just, it's like Coachella or Burning Man. It gets too crazy. I fucking hate that shit. But if you get too rigid over here on the right wing, then everything becomes automatonish and like, this all rulesy. So we need the middle to kind of balance this out, if this makes sense. Now, I don't know if y'all like Joker. I miss Heath Ledger, but there's this part of the Joker where he says, why would I kill you, Batman? The world is so much more fun within you in it. And basically what he's saying is, Batman is there in order for him, chaos, to tear up. But without the chaos, then Batman has no job to go clean up. He needs the chaos Batman to go have a job to clean up because he doesn't want to just be Bruce Wayne hanging around. So there's kind of this symbiotic relationship. I don't know if this comes off well in the video, but I would love to talk more about this in class. Okay, so anyway. To sum up, I have this quote from John Adams: there is nothing which I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged. Isn't this what we're under right now? And this is the second president of the United States. I don't want just two parties where they fight with each other. We're the United States of America. So Suzy Kassem, this is the last thing I'll show, and we'll be done for the day. But anyway, it's going to be hard for us to fly as a nation if we don't come together. We need to stop being divided. That's just my 2 cents. I could be totally wrong about that. But until next time, I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and give me a call or email me if you have any questions.